In 2023, the monster hiding behind the face of a quiet Long Island architect was finally unmasked. For over a decade, the bodies of women had been rotting in the thick brambles along Gilgo Beach, discarded like trash, buried beneath the sand, wrapped in a burlap, and left to be swallowed by time and tide. The killer had a ritual. He hunted sex workers, lured them with promises, strangled them, stripped them of identity, and posed their remains in ways that suggested control, satisfaction, and hatred. He watched the world search for answers while he slipped back into his home, kissed his children goodnight, and slept soundly. His name was Rex Heuermann, and if the evidence is right, he lived among us with the calm, deliberate quiet of a man who knew his darkness would never see the light. It started, as so many American nightmares do, with a woman running for her life. In the early hours of May 1st of 2010, 24-year-old Shannon Gilbert pounded on doors in the gated Oak Beach community, barefoot and screaming. "They're trying to kill me," she cried into her phone during a panicked 911 call that lasted 23 minutes. Her voice trembled with terror. Something had gone horribly wrong during a call with a client, and whatever she saw, or whoever she ran from, drove her straight into the night. Minutes later, she disappeared into the marshes, swallowed by darkness and water. Her last words on the call were barely audible. But what police found in the months after her disappearance would turn the sands of Gilgo Beach into a graveyard. In December 2010, an officer and his cadaver dog made a chilling discovery while searching for Shannon. Skeletal remains wrapped tightly in burlap, lying just off Ocean Parkway. Then, 3 more sets of remains were found within days. All young women, all sex workers, all posed deliberately. It was clear now, someone had been hunting. Someone had used this stretch of isolated road as a dumping ground, each body placed with methodical precision. These 4 victims, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, became known as the Gilgo Four. Their remains were eerily preserved, their bones leached of flesh by salt air and time, their stories silenced and dumped. But that wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. As the search widened, the horror multiplied. 6 more victims were discovered, some dismembered, some reduced to skulls and torsos. One was a toddler, found just yards away from the remains of a woman believed to be her mother. Another victim was a young man in women's clothing. The killer, or killers, had no clear pattern except cruelty. Some of the remains were spread over miles of shoreline. Some had been cut to pieces, their torsos discovered years earlier in entirely different counties, now tied together by DNA. One woman's head and hands had been severed and stored separately, perhaps to prevent identification. But the killer wasn't just hiding bodies. He was hiding in plain sight. Phone records told a new kind of horror. In 2009, Melissa Barthelemy's teenage sister received a series of taunting calls from Melissa's phone after she vanished. The voice on the other end was deep, calm, and terrifying. He described in graphic detail what he had done to her. "I killed her," he said. The calls were traced to crowded areas of Manhattan, like Times Square and Madison Square Garden, places packed with cameras, yet not a single frame of footage showed him. He was a phantom. As fear gripped Long Island, the investigation began to collapse under its own weight. Jurisdictional turf wars, infighting, and accusations of police misconduct all but derailed the case. Then Police Chief James Burke refused FBI assistance and was later imprisoned himself for assault and corruption. Leads dried up, suspects came and went, and the marsh kept its secrets. Shannon Gilbert's body wasn't found until December 2011, face down in a swamp less than half a mile from where she was last seen. Her jeans, shoes, and purse were found strewn in separate locations, as if she had been running, shedding her belongings as she fled. Her hyoid bone, crucial in detecting strangulation, was missing, though police ruled her death accidental, citing psychosis or disorientation. Her family and many forensic experts believed otherwise. They believed she had met the same fate as the others. The case went cold. For years, the name Gilgo Beach conjured images of brutality but no justice. The community moved on. The press stopped asking questions. The killer, whoever he was, had gotten away with it. Until 2022. A new task force took over the investigation. Silent, strategic, and determined, they dug through the old evidence and focused on the victims most likely to be linked, the Gilgo Four. They cross-referenced phone data, revisited witness accounts, and discovered something buried in plain sight: a green Chevrolet Avalanche. A witness had described it as the vehicle seen the night Amber Costello vanished. That truck led them to a name that had lingered unnoticed in the background for too long: Rex Heuermann. A 59-year-old married father of two, Heuermann was an architect with an office in Midtown Manhattan. He lived in the same worn-down red house he'd grown up in, just minutes from where the first bodies were found. He was tall, heavy-set, with thick glasses and a voice that left a lasting impression because it matched the voice in those taunting phone calls from years before. Investigators began to follow him. They trailed him to work. They sifted through his trash. They watched him eat alone, slow and deliberate, as if unaware of the storm gathering around him. Then, from a discarded pizza crust, they got DNA. A hair recovered from the burlap used to wrap one of the victims matched his profile. The arrest was swift. On July 13, 2023, police surrounded Heuermann as he left his office and placed him in custody. In his Massapequa Park home, they found a hidden arsenal of over 200 weapons. His internet search history read like a horror novel: child torture, snuff films, necrophilia, how to dispose of bodies. He had dozens of burner phones, fake email accounts, and a digital trail that led straight to the darkest corners of the human mind. He had searched for photos of his own victims. He had read articles about the investigation, tracked police press conferences, even looked up how investigators might use forensic genealogy to catch a killer. He wanted to know how close they were, how much time he had left. He was obsessed with the case because he was at the center of it. But the horror didn't end with his arrest. It only deepened. Neighbors recalled seeing him outside late at night, standing in his driveway, staring into the dark like he was waiting for something. Or remembering, his wife and children, blindsided by the news, were out of town during each of the murders. He had timed his kills, investigators said, to the nights he was alone. They found no blood in the house, no trophies in plain view. But the way he lived, the double life he maintained, was chilling. The quiet family man who coached his kids and designed Manhattan skyscrapers had also, police say, tied burlap sacks around women's necks and crushed the life from them with his hands. Heuermann has been charged with the murders of Melissa Barthélemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, and remains the prime suspect in Maureen Brainerd Barnes's death. As of now, he maintains his innocence. His attorneys call the case circumstantial, and yet the evidence is damning. His DNA on the burlap, his car at the scene, his voice echoing in a grieving sister's memory, his digital fingerprints on every horrific detail. If he is guilty, then this man, the man who smiled at neighbors and paid his taxes and packed his children's lunches, was also a monster who left bodies to rot in the cold sand, all while living a seemingly normal life just miles from where they lay. Still, so many of the victims remain nameless: Jane Doe's, skeletal remains pulled from dunes and brush, limbs that don't match torsos, mothers who never came home. The full extent of the Long Island serial killer's crimes may never be known. Some believe Heuermann acted alone. Others are convinced there was another killer, or more than one. The brutality is too varied. The timelines are scattered. Some victims were dismembered. Others were left whole. The police have not ruled out the possibility of multiple perpetrators, and in the quiet spaces between the facts, that possibility breathes like a whisper from the dunes. The marshland is quiet now. The wind carries the scent of salt and decay. But the echoes of what happened there, of women running, screaming, dying, still cling to the cattails and branches. The sand remembers, the water remembers, and beneath it all, there are bones we have yet to find. The story of the Long Island serial killer is not just a story of murder. It's a story of silence, of women whose lives were overlooked because of what they did for money, of families dismissed, of a justice system that dragged its feet until it was almost too late. It's the story of a man who hid in plain sight for years, confident that no one would look close enough, confident that the world would forget. But the world didn't forget. And now, after more than a decade, the ground has spoken. The dead have names. The dead have voices. And for the first time, someone is listening.